Now, we also know from the family's own account that one of William Pepper's nieces was there, and she said to her uncle, "Oh, Uncle Willie, do dig deeper." And he said, "No, that's the end of it," which, with hindsight, was a terrible mistake.
Digging deeper might have answered questions that clouded this amazing find for the next 100 years. But Pepe did not dig deeper. And why should he? What he had already found was little short of miraculous. Willie was an estate manager, not an archaeologist. Little attention was paid to the details of which jewels had come from which of the jars. More importantly, what everyone had overlooked in all the excitement were the bits of bone and ash mixed in with the jewels.
Well, that same evening, Pepe realized that these fragments must be human remains. As to who they were or how old they might be, of course he had no idea. But he was very careful. He gathered them all up, and he put them inside 2 stone jars, which he sealed. And then he sat down to write 2 crucial letters. Well, the first of the 2 letters went to a friend of his, Vincent Smith. He was a local district officer based in Gorakhpur, about 50 miles to the south. And he was also a very keen antiquarian, indeed quite a specialist. The second letter, however, was to a genuine archaeologist, the only archaeologist in the entire area. And he was actually working about 20 miles to the north on an excavation. And his name was Dr. Anton Führer. Both these men wrote back almost immediately, and they were both very excited by what he discovered. And they both asked exactly the same question: is there an inscription anywhere?
Pepe, in fact, had already found one. Around the neck of one of the reliquary jars was a line of spidery writing, consisting of 36 strange letters. The letters themselves, let alone the language they represented, were completely unknown and indecipherable to Pepe. But he painstakingly copied out the mysterious inscription and scribbled a hasty note to his friend Vincent Smith, the local district officer.
Now, quite amazingly, this little scrap of paper has survived. You can see that Willie Pepe has very carefully copied the characters on the urn. And then underneath it, you can see that Vincent Smith has given his first transcription of what it might mean. Ya Salila Nidani Buddhasa. And then if you turn this little scrap of paper over, on the back you find Vincent Smith's reply. And it begins, "The relics appear to be those of the Buddha himself." Hard to imagine what must have been going through Pepe's mind when he saw that. This is mind-blowing stuff.
Mind-blowing indeed. No relics of the Buddha, dead for almost 2,500 years, had ever been found. If Pepe had located them, it was a discovery of huge importance, akin to finding a piece of the true cross.
Führer's response was just as enthusiastic. He wrote back, "Your shrine contains rare relics of Lord Buddha."
Within weeks, Dr. Führer, in his role as official archaeologist for much of northern India, was on his way to see Pepe. A visit that would have dire consequences. No one knew it yet, but Dr. Führer was a fraud.
The enigmatic Dr. Anton Führer, Roman Catholic priest turned reverend, turned amateur curator, turned bogus Sanskritist, turned professional archaeologist. I spent years trying to understand this man and years trying to find a photograph. And the best I've been able to come up with, there's one that shows him at the scene of one of his early digs, and you can see him standing by a statue. And the other one, here he is at Piprawa, and he's standing with William Pepe. But in both those pictures, he's a kind of shadowy figure. And really, that's the shadow that he casts over the Piprawa Stupa excavation.
An unsuspecting Pepe met Dr. Führer at Piprawa 4 weeks or so after the find. Soon, a scandal would surround Führer. The German archaeologist had sold bogus Buddha relics, falsified numerous reports, and worst of all, had faked at least one ancient inscription. He resigned before he could be fired. In its capital in Calcutta, India's British government faced its own scandal. Dr. Führer, after all, was one of their most senior archaeologists.